Good evening. I'm Bill Bowie, and welcome to our committee and board meetings on this evening, April 27th, 2022. I will make the requisite motions so that we can conduct these meetings virtually. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the Fairfax County Emergency Ordinance, the Park Authority Board needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record, as we did at our first electronic meeting. During our meeting, if you wish to be recognized, please raise your hand, and when I recognize you, please state your name. This will ensure that you are recognized and the public knows who is speaking. If you intend to vote nay or abstain on any item, we will need to do a roll call on those votes. Because each member of this board is participating in these meetings from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, at an appropriate volume for all the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each board member participating in these meetings to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each one of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each one of your colleagues. And following the roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member's voice, and we will go alphabetically. Also, as the evening progresses, if additional board members join us for our meetings, I will ask them to verify their audibility and their location. Dr. Carter.
Yes, I am joining from my home in Lee District.
Maggie Godbold.
Hi, I'm Maggie Godbold, and I'm joining from my home in the Sully District.
Linwood Gorham.
This is Linwood Gorham, and I'm joining from my home in the Mount Vernon district.
Tim Hackman.
Tim Hackman, participating from my residence in the Drainsville district.
Ron Kendall.
This is Ron Kendall, and I'm participating from my home in Mason district.
Faisal Khan.
This is Faisal Khan. I'm participating from my residence in Providence district.
Ken Quincy, I don't see. Oh, there he is. He's connecting to audio now. While he's doing that, Michael Thompson.
Mike Thompson from my office in Alexandria.
Jim Zook.
Jim Zook from my home in the Springfield district.
Ken Quincy, are you there now? Ken? You're on mute. Well, Ken Quincy has joined us, and he's joining us from his residence in the Providence district. I'm Bill Bowie, and I'm participating from my residence in the Hunter Mill district. At this point, I'll pass the virtual gavel to Vice Chairman Godbold so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of this board.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
This is Mike Thompson. I second the motion.
This is Maggie Godbold. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes.
Thank you, Maggie. This is Bill Bowie. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this board to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of this board and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that this board may conduct this meeting electronically via Zoom. It is so moved.
This is Maggie Godbold. You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Tim Hackman, I second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Mr. Chairman, the motion's approved.
Thank you, Maggie. This is Bill Bowie. Now that the preliminary matters are complete, we can begin the administration and board management committee meeting. Reminder, when you are talking, please state your name, and I will turn it over to Mr. Khan.
All right, this is Faisal Khan, and I call to the order of Administration and Board Management Committee meeting. Allison, could you please present the items?
Good evening. This is Allison Rankin. We will present the first batch of policies for the process that we're going through to review the policy manual tonight. So we went over this at the last meeting, but just to refresh everyone's mind, the staff has been meeting and reviewing the policies and sort of ongoing process and bits. The policies as they get reviewed are, the proposed changes are getting vetted by our senior management team. We're then going to bring the policies in sort of chunks to this committee and the board. And then at the end of the review process, we will send the entire policy manual with all the proposed revisions to the county attorney for their review. And then we'll bring a final clean copy back to the board, hopefully in early 2023 for final approval. Tonight, we are going to look at Objective 100 and policies 101, 104, 105, and 106. 102 and 103 have required a little bit more input on the staff review process and some coordination with risk management and others. So we're going to postpone those for just a bit to give us a little more time to get a thorough review completed before we bring those forward to you for review. So Objective 100 is sort of the heading for this first chapter of policies. It states to establish policies for the Park Authority that provide direction for the implementation of sustainable management practices in accordance with community needs. And after staff review of that statement, we felt that no changes needed to be proposed to that. And policy 101, Josh Smith, our brand new safety officer, will speak to the proposed changes for that one.
Hello, everyone. This is Joshua Smith. Policy 101, safety and property security. There are no notable recommendations for changes to this policy. The reference document, the Fairfax County Security Manual, is current. However, it is under revision by Fairfax County Department of Emergency Management and Security. We will be provided a copy of that whenever that is completed. The supporting documentation from the Park Authority, the Safety and Risk Management Plan is under revision with an anticipated delivery date of May 1st to the Director's Office for approval.
All right, and policy 104, Sarah.
Good evening, Sarah Baldwin, Deputy Director. I'm reviewing the standards of conduct policy. Minor changes being recommended by staff, mostly just clarification on the policy. The first one in paragraph 3 of the policy statement, we've adjusted the wording there to more clearly define the guidelines that govern staff standards of conduct versus the board. In the number 6, on the different elements under the policy statement, we've added the word closed, since generally that's what we call it. And then finally, because we do reference the Code of Ethics and Standards of Conduct in the policy statement, we've added that as a reference and a link to the Standards of Conduct at the bottom of the policy document. And those are the changes being recommended by staff for that one.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Would it make sense to include a link to the conflict of interest form?
You can do that.
I only ask because I think that would be a good idea so that the public knows what it is, but also so that if we have to find it so that we can fill it out, we can fill it out if needed.
Sounds good. We'll add that.
This is Linwood. I've got a question also.
Sure.
Sorry, I did go over this material and I didn't pick up on this before, but a closed session and an executive session are two different things, aren't they? And I guess what's the context of having to add closed to an executive session?
So generally executive sessions and correct me if I'm wrong, and the way that this is worded is related to executive sessions that are closed sessions where information should not be released with the public. So if you had an executive board meeting of the executive committee of the board, that would not be a closed session. There are specific parameters that allow us to have closed sessions, and that's what number 6 is referring to. So items where the information is not available to the public.
Okay, you've described it exactly the way I thought it was, but so help me out here. Can we have closed sessions in any of the committees?
We can only have closed sessions for specific reasons. Acquisition of property, legal matters, personnel items. I think those are the 3, Judy or Amy. If there are others that I'm missing, please.
Any legal procedure, any land acquisition, any personnel matter.
Right, and all those things are typically in the board meetings. At least in my tenure on the board, I don't remember ever having a closed session committee meeting.
Linwood, actually, you and I
exist.
Linwood, I'm just going to interrupt real quick. You and I had to do one together during it because of an issue at one point.
You're right. I do remember that.
So I guess the question, I think, Linwood, is do we have to make a distinction between a closed session of the full board and a closed session of the executive or any other committee? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, that's one way to put it. Yes.
So maybe the word that's hanging us up here is the word executive. And maybe if we strike that and just say closed session, so really it's any closed session, that's when the information should not be released to the public.
That completely clears it up for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it does for everybody, because the executive committee could meet at any time. So if we just if we
I'll make that change.
that works.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? All right.
All right, moving on. We have 2 more. Next up is policy 105, and that Mike Peter will speak to that.
Thank you, Allison. So this is a relatively brief policy, but what we did was go through it to make sure it reflects the classification, for instance, that we're not just talking about what this used to be called revenue funds. We're talking about the operating trust funds, which currently include the revenue and operating fund as well as the park improvement fund. We also specified in the policy statement that all financial operations that are allowed in a fund in the county are allowable in these funds as well. So that includes budgeting, investment, purchasing, financial transactions, and they also have the capacity to retain bond indenture if we had ever gone down that road. We also removed references in the policy to the financial management plan annual update, because this is really now part of our strategic and business plans in conformance with county policy. So the work that had formerly gone into updating and reviewing the financial management principles is really part of our larger work that we're already undertaking as we go forward. And we do all of our transactions in conformance with county requirements.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, and I apologize because I may have asked this question when we reviewed this policy before, but I've completely spaced on what the answer potentially would be. Sometimes the fund numbers change.
Yeah.
So does it make sense just to have the park authority's revenue and operating fund, instead of calling it by a specific number that next year, based on whatever they say across the street, might change again?
I think that is certainly an adjustment that we could make to this, so we don't have to update it every time a fund number changes. It wouldn't happen often, but you're absolutely right, Mike. It could happen very simply.
I remember one time when it went through the changes, and all of a sudden it was just trying to keep track of what number it was now and stuff. And I'm just asking the question. It's not a deal breaker. I just didn't know.
No.
It would certainly help to have a cross index of all the numbers attached to all the different funds for sure. Because outside of the folks on this call, nobody else understands it.
We could easily refer to like a small appendix to this that would simply say, just as Bill said, here are the numbers, and they may be updated, but this is the crosswalk for it.
That'd be great. I just trying to make it easier and less necessity for us to come back and change things.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
This is Linwood. I agree with Mike's point completely. This is a very good one. It's certainly a lot easier to remember the names of the different funds and stuff like that than the numbers. So if we just by practice referred to the different funds by their names, knowing they had numbers associated with them, it may be less confusing for everyone.
We can make those adjustments, absolutely.
Linwood, it only took me 18 years to finally get all those numbers down.
I hear you. Just about the time I figured them out was the time they changed them all.
Any other questions, discussion? Right. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, our last policy is 106, and Bobby Longworth is here to speak to that one.
Thank you. This policy was in fairly good shape and we didn't need to change that much. However, we did work on a few semantics, clarifying a few things just for reference. Planned giving is now called gift planning. So I know many of you who are involved in fundraising are familiar with that. So basically, with that, we are also referencing policy 407 relating to friends groups, since there's more and more of that happening. And otherwise, it's fairly minor, which is good. That means the work that we did years ago still stands. Any questions for this?
Yeah, just one quick note. In a different hat that I wear for the county, on a different board, we found that nonprofit became an issue because it's a term of art that not necessarily everybody readily understood. And so there was actually a notation to that it had to be a recognized 501c3, whatever the recognized by the IRS. I mean, it may be worth a footnote to make clear that this is an officially designated official real nonprofit, not just somebody that said, oh, I'm not doing this for a profit, so I can just go do. And that became an issue with an organization that that was filed as a for-profit corporation, but was saying that they weren't trying to profit, and therefore they were a nonprofit.
Oh, well, nonprofit is shorthand for not for profit. So in this case, we're a not for 501c3, not for profit corporation.
No, I understand, but there's the C3, it could be C4, C6. The point is, I think that you may want to make a footnote, make it clear that this is through a recognized designation, not just it's a term of art that we should look to define, not just floating out there because of the issue created somewhere else.
Okay. Recognized designation by the IRS.
Or whatever those right words. You can check with Neighborhood and Community Services. They can pull language that I think the county attorney signed off for them.
And there is a distinction between not-for-profit and nonprofit.
That's right.
So so Innova, as big as they are a not-for-profit, but they are certainly not nonprofit.
All right, thank you. We'll look into that.
All right, so any discussion? Oh, seeing and hearing none.
Faisal, I just had a question.
Sure.
Just a quick question. I'm wondering when we're going to see the full texts on these policies. I just would like to see an electronic version of the whole thing.
Sure.
With the changes in it. It's easier for me to deal with if I'm able to read it through because they're supposed to follow one another. That's all.
So the marked up versions were attached to the board item. Are you wanting them compiled?
No, if they're there, that's fine. I didn't see them, but I'll go check back and check. But that's what I was concerned about. I wanted to actually see the full text.
Yeah, they were there as marked up PDFs in the board item.
Any other questions, discussion? Well, seeing and hearing none, I hereby adjourn the Administration and Board Management Committee meeting. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Faisal. This is Bill Bowie. And so we are now on hiatus or adjourned until 6:40. All right, it is 6:40. Kyle Stone has joined us. Kyle, can you tell us who you are and where you are?
Yeah, my name is Kyle Stonebrack, District Representative of the Park Authority, calling from George Mason University.
Thank you, sir. And with that, I will turn it over to you for the Resource Management Committee.
All right, thank you. Again, my name is Kyle Stone, and we call the Resource Management Committee to order. John Burke has a presentation for us. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Burke. I'm the branch manager of natural resources with Park Authority. I also have some guest speakers here with me today. We'll go quickly and introduce the three of us. We have Jack Wyant, Sarah Silverman, and Matthew Mertz, and we'll go around the room and they can introduce themselves.
I am Jack Wyant, the director of the Department of Code Compliance. Happy to be here.
I am Sarah Silverman from the Office of the County Attorney.
And Matt Mertz, Code Specialist 3 for the Department of Code Compliance. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all very much for joining me today and for joining the Park Authority Board here to discuss running bamboo. So you all have had presentations in the past to discuss running bamboo and potential ordinances that may be passed to control it in Fairfax County. What we are going to discuss today is the ordinance that has just been passed by the Board of Supervisors regarding running bamboo and the situation on the ground, so to speak, in Park Authority as it pertains to running bamboo and where we're headed in the future. So if we can go to the next slide, please. In 2017, the General Assembly enacted legislation that authorized localities to add running bamboo to existing ordinances regulating grass and to adopt an ordinance providing for the control of running bamboo. And for the sake of the ordinance and for this legislation, running bamboo is defined as, quote, any bamboo that is characterized by aggressive spreading behavior, including species in the genus Phylostachys. And then on the 22nd of March, 2022, the Fairfax County Board took action on this legislation, and the Board of Supervisors approved a new ordinance that will require property owners and residents to prevent running bamboo from spreading and to take steps to contain or eradicate it. This ordinance takes effect on the 1st of January, 2023. Next slide, please. So some of the language from this ordinance basically outlines how running bamboo should be contained, or rather outlines that it should be contained, and further defines what a landowner is in terms of bamboo. And essentially, a landowner being any person that has bamboo on their property, in the definition of this ordinance, will be required to either control that bamboo from spreading onto an adjacent property or otherwise removing it. This is a complaint-based ordinance, which will be enforced by code enforcement. As you can see here, there are some civil penalties that are associated with this. And these penalties are, especially at the $200 and $2,000 level, the $200 reliant on additional operative facts that would escalate the situation, essentially having multiple instances of running bamboo or multiple violations, so to speak. Next slide, please. This is the situation on the ground for Park Authority. We've been monitoring and collecting running bamboo populations since around 2015 in GIS. These are points, these are not polygons. So these are just centroids to a large population or a small population of running bamboo. We currently have 185 populations that have been identified and mapped. We estimate around 204 acres of bamboo total. However, that number is probably larger now since we've been collecting this in 2015. We suspect that many of these populations have probably grown. You'll notice that down there by Lake Accotink, we have a high concentration of points. That is associated with the Accotink Trail repair project. A lot of the bamboo in that section was identified and marked in GIS as part of that work. So that's why you see a high concentration there. Typically, on a good year, we'll remove around 2 to 3 sites via the IMA program, which is our invasive management area program. However, as you'll see on the next slide, it can be quite expensive to do so. Next slide, please. So this is what I would consider an expensive example of how much it can cost to remove bamboo. At Gilmacutcheon Park, we removed about an acre, and this was a tall, large population of running bamboo that required physical removal of the above ground portion of the bamboo and follow-up treatment. The expensive part of removing running bamboo, or an additional expense when you look at it compared to other invasive plants, are disposal fees and the additional labor associated with physically removing the large shoots of bamboo itself. Next slide, please. So there are obviously pros and cons to this ordinance. We'll be working with code compliance as well as our neighboring properties to achieve compliance in the eyes of the ordinance. I think the pros to this ordinance are certainly the fact that Fairfax County has stepped up, its control and recognition of invasive plants by enabling landowners to not only complain, but also allowing Park Authority some ability or some backing to continue investing in the removal of bamboo. We do get funding for invasive plant removal. However, this is the first directive that has been applied towards removing a particular species. Additionally, this would address a number of complaints that we receive. I estimate we receive around 10 to 20 bamboo complaints per year from neighboring homeowners about bamboo, either on Park Authority property spreading to theirs, or just adjacent to Park Authority where they see bamboo like off in the forest somewhere that they're concerned about getting close to their house. There are some cons associated with this, and not necessarily cons, but things that we need to be aware of. As I mentioned in the previous slide, it will be expensive in many cases to remove bamboo. Now, again, that is an expensive example for 1 acre, but is not atypical at that price. Obviously, as we scale up, there'll be some efficiencies that can be gained. However, it's good to be aware of the cost overall. We also need to make sure that we are continuing to provide solid outreach to the community. And we are currently working with code enforcement to make sure that we are having a unified message as far as expectations for methods of control, as well as how internally we're going to prioritize addressing running bamboo. Some of these methods of control, if good outreach is not provided to neighboring homeowners, could potentially lead to damage to park resources, including trenching, which may hit the critical root zones of trees on Park Authority property if we're not in good communication with our neighbors. And then finally, I think it's important to mention that eradication countywide may not be possible or likely, and that we may have to have some serious discussions with neighboring landowners about coordinating on eradicating bamboo versus trying to contain it. Next slide, please. I have some recommendations that I want to put forward as far as future actions that we can take responsive to this new ordinance. Of course, Park Authority will have to continue being a good partner with code compliance and the county attorney's office wherein we develop outreach materials and engage the public, especially our neighbors, about this new ordinance and how Park Authority intends to respond. We will also continue to monitor and track bamboo complaints, as well as bamboo that is uncovered by staff in the field. We will also need to establish a new prioritization protocol for bamboo removal. Our current invasive plant prioritization protocol does not typically place bamboo high up on the level of plants that we go after, not only because of price, but also because it typically forms monocultures, and often we're looking to target our invasive removal efforts in areas where we can restore high quality habitat. Usually we're not looking at areas that are extremely densely packed with invasives or areas that have no invasives. We're kind of looking for that middle ground, and therefore we're going to need a separate prioritization process for bamboo, probably based around working with our neighbors to achieve compliance. And then finally, we'll probably have to establish a bamboo fund separate for IMA so that we can isolate this ordinance from the overall cost of doing business in invasive removal. So currently IMA gets around $300,000 per year for invasive removal. So as you can see with the $35,000 for 1 acre of bamboo, if we just spent all of our IMA money on bamboo, that would take a big chunk out of it. And it would certainly consume a lot of staff time as well. So there'll probably have to be future conversations about avenues to increase funding and potentially staff time to help implement this ordinance and continue being a good neighbor by removing bamboo with neighboring property owners. And with that, we'll take some questions if you all have any.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, no, I was unmuting myself. Tim?
Thank you, Kyle. Tim Hackman. John, Supervisor Faust introduced a budget consideration item that was adopted in markup to provide 3 additional ecologists, funding for 3 additional ecologists for the Park Authority. And so I assume that will be part of the final adopted budget. And I would also assume that a significant portion of their time would be devoted either to IMA and or the running bamboo, as well as other items. Could you comment on that?
I'm happy to. Yeah, that's certainly great news for the Natural Resource Branch and for Park Authority in general to establish the landscape legacy and sustainability program to help support our established restorations, IMA sites, and high quality habitats is really huge for us. Bringing in the additional staff is going to be just a huge step forward, and the whole team is really excited about it. That program was not initiated to handle bamboo by itself. Essentially, that program was initiated to help support the restorations that we've completed on Park Authority property. So we'll be looking at doing spot treatments of invasive plants on completed restorations after the bond funding has been expended. We'll also be using that group to support, in some instances, perhaps IMA sites that have been retired while we're seeking additional support for new site leaders. They'll be supporting ongoing efforts to protect high quality natural areas through protection measures, as well as maintaining established protection measures, such as some of the fences we have in Fairfax County. Additionally, that team is going to help expand our prescribed burn program, wherein we will implement a series of maintenance burns, which we're doing already in limited amounts, but what we really should be doing in much greater numbers to maintain some of the high quality rare natural communities that we have in Fairfax County. As far as their work with bamboo, I could see some of their time being used to manage bamboo especially in those areas I just mentioned, like old IMA sites, completed restorations, things like that. But in the essence of that program is intended to support and maintain those places where we've already implemented active management measures.
Can I jump in on your question, Tim?
Thank you.
So bamboo has the potential of taking over everything, and no pun intended. In general, I wasn't planning on finishing the sentence yet. So depending on how this goes, I mean, theoretically speaking, chasing bamboo, and that's just if the first time works. I mean, a lot of times you're going back there 4, 5, 6, 7 years later. I mean, bamboo is just one of the biggest nuisances. I mean, it has the ability to gobble up everything. And so I think that, you know, we were so behind on taking care of our natural areas the way that we needed to take care of our natural areas. I think this has the potential, I will say, to put a significant burden on us, especially because it's slightly crowdsourced. So it's basically reacting to people who are complaining about it, and whether or not we want to follow that along and say, well, we didn't start it, they started it on somebody else's property. So just the administrative part of following sort of the train to figure out where it started is just a time suck in general. So I'm a little wary about this to see how it's actually going to impact. I think if we'll have a lot more, we'll know a lot more later as it progresses. I don't know if any of our guests wanted to say anything about that or tell me I'm wrong.
Thank you.
Linwood?
Yeah, I've got 2 questions. The first one is looking for some little bit of detail on the respond to complaints comments that this was going to be enforced with. Can anybody complain about the bamboo crossing the property line, or does it have to be a complaint from the person that's harmed from the encroachment of the bamboo? I guess I'm trying to see if we're going to be dealing with like vigilante bamboo haters that are going to report everything, or does it actually have to be somebody affected by the bamboo problem?
Sarah Silverman from the County Attorney's Office. Yes, anybody can complain. So, I mean, that is a reality, is that anybody can call in a complaint to DCC, and DCC has to go out and investigate, and they become the enforcing agency. Now, it has to be encroaching on somebody else's property, so it's not just the presence of bamboo in the park, it is bamboo encroaching.
I guess the scenario that I would put to really drill down on it would be that if somebody lodged a complaint about bamboo coming out of a park onto somebody else's property, but that other person that's property it was coming onto, for example, liked the buffer and didn't have a problem with it and didn't want it eradicated there, would the complaint person who's not a victim of it, just an observer, would we still have to address that complaint?
The complainant has no independent rights. There's nothing that they can do once they call in the complaint. I'll defer to Jack Wyant sort of in terms of how DCC has handled that situation in the past, if there's anything similar to that. But we look for voluntary compliance, and I understand that there's sort of an effort on Park Authority's part to work with adjacent property owners so that you can deal with the entirety of the problem. So I'll let Jack maybe weigh in on how they would handle that situation, but the complainant, while they can call in the complaint, does not have any independent rights outside of calling in the complaint.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello to your daughter there. So when we get a complaint, we've got people, and I hope this doesn't happen, but we've got people I'll use Drainsville, who complain about infill lots, and we've got a few years ago, we had one guy who rode around on every infill lot and complained about the trees being cut down, even though the developer property owner had the right to cut the trees down and followed all the county guidelines. We were inundated with complaints about, why are you letting them cut the trees down? We get the same person calling about signs, and he's just a chronic sign complainer. And we still have to go out and look at each one of those complaints. So even though it's not, on his property or even anywhere, any of his business in a way, he's just trying to be the citizen who enforces the code. So are we going to have that with bamboo? I don't know. I mean, all I can tell you is we're complaint based. I can tell you that up to now, we've had zero complaints about bamboo. We may get a complaint about it. Maybe we've had a few in a year, but we basically tell them we don't enforce it. So I'm going to tell you, we don't have any complaints on bamboo right now. But as Sarah said, if they do come in, we're going to have to respond to them. But the citizen who complains, or if someone's got bamboo on their property, whether they like it or not, their obligation under this ordinance is to contain it and keep it from spreading. So on the citizen next to the park authority, if we get a complaint, we're gonna ask them to contain the bamboo also. I think that's the way we're going to handle it.
So basically the answer to the question is yes, anybody can complain.
A long way of saying yes, Linwood, sorry.
I do have one more question about the definition that was talked about at the very beginning of the presentation of bamboo. And I'm sorry, the exact wordage is escaping me right now, but it was something to do with the something plant that aggressively spreads or something like that. That wasn't it, but that's what it meant. By nature, all bamboo does that, but there are different kinds of bamboo, obviously, and I'm familiar with one that's close to me, that whereas by nature it spreads, it actually spreads pretty slowly. Is the ordinance intended to address all bamboo, even the slower spreading stuff? Or is there some characteristic that defines some bamboos as not a problem?
With the ordinance, and I'll let Sarah jump in, but the ordinance is for running bamboo. There's running and clumping bamboo. I've learned much more about bamboo than I ever thought I'd learn as an old man. But when I read and see videos and talk to people and see these things, supposedly we're going to be able to tell the difference between clumping and running. The running is going to shoot the horizontal underground runners that can shoot a runner out as much as 6 or 10 feet in a year underground. But while the clumping bamboo, it's more like I'll say a regular plant that kind of grows from the middle out and upward. So it's not going to be shooting those runners out. So clumping is going to probably spread in that circular way, but it's not supposed to spread with those runners. John, maybe you can add to that. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, I think you've explained it well, but just to elaborate a little further, clumping bamboo, it has the structure that we're concerned about is the rhizome structure, the root-like structure that spreads and runs per se, and the pachymeral rhizome is like what we call like the clumping, where it just kind of, you have a small initial structure and then the bamboo emerges above ground from that structure. But the running bamboo is a leptomorph rhizome, where it has that running, trailing, spreading tendency. Our park authorities, vegetation ecologist Nelson DeBarros has worked or communicated rather with code compliance to provide some easy ways to identify the difference in the field, so that if there is a complaint regarding clumping bamboo, that the code inspectors, if that's the correct term, can easily identify the difference.
I'm sorry, this is almost a personal request, although it does have park authority ramification. is there any way you can, that same thing that code compliance is going to have as far as identifying the bamboo? Any way you can give me that information also?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Bill, how much time are you gonna give me? Since we're already over and I've got 3 hands still.
Yeah, and Jim's hand's been up quite a while, and so is Ron. So let's go there.
All right, Jim, you're up.
The button, I guess. I guess, you know, an observation, a couple of observations and experiences. One is that the county, and not necessarily just the park authority, need to step up communication so that residents, even though they like a lovely screen, know that it's an invasive plan and shouldn't be done. And I raise that because my neighbor, Sully, this was like 10 years ago, maybe 20, was planting the species in an open space. Actually, it's homeowner's open space, but it's behind his house. And I approached him. I said, "Are you really planting that?" And his comment was, "It was, my dad had this stuff, and I wanted to just, plant it back here. I took it from his house, whatever." And I said, "Well, that's not a good idea." And he ended up not planting it. And I just share that because I think the more we get information out about how this is detrimental, it may sink in with some people. The other observation I guess I have is that as I guess president of the HOA in Little Rocky Run, we have some open space area. There's also a Civil War easement where a property owner has planted that, and so there's a subsequent property owner. So that, and we're trying to figure out a way to cause that to be remedied by the current property owner. So, I guess it might be actually helpful if, there was some resource with the county where we could at least find out, whether it was the clumping or running variety before we tried to take some kind of action against the property owner. I guess that's a couple of thoughts. My concern, I guess, with the bamboo and the easement, Civil War easement trenches, is that there are multiple agencies, I guess, who own that easement, and it's difficult to figure out who to work with. And I think I talked with Jack about this, or maybe someone from his office a while ago. So I guess Lynn would ask for some, I guess, personal help. Who is it that I should talk with? Is it you, Jack, again, about our situation here, or maybe not? Maybe somebody else. Thank you.
I mean, is it about bamboo, or is it about?
It's about bamboo.
Yeah, I mean, I can try to help you, although, we're not on the clock with this stuff till January 1st, but I'm already getting calls and trying to point citizens in the right direction. So I'm happy to talk to you about it. If you want to give me a call sometime, shoot me an email here.
I appreciate that. And also I'm going to follow up with a sign complaint.
Thanks. I appreciate that too. Hey, just real quick though, your one comment about the outreach. We are embarking on a fairly extensive outreach education for bamboo through through public affairs. They're taking the lead. Tony's been tasked with it. We've got to, I think, present something before the environmental committee next month. It's going to include some little videos that are going to go on channel 16, some handouts. We're working with Soil and Water. We're going to have a flyer talking about options to contain it, options to kind of contain it on your property. So that's going to be coming soon. And we're working on that so that we're going to be geared up for the January 1st ordinance going into effect.
Thank you.
Ron?
Yeah, I can't get my head around the idea that FCPA has to look at this as a kind of a stovepipe operation. This has to be a county-wide effort. This has to bring both mechanicals and chemicals from across the board to attack this. If the county puts in an ordinance, the county should come up with a plan to deal with it. And that means cross-organizational structure. There is no way the park authority as one single entity can deal with bamboo along with everything else it's doing. There's no way. So I'm fully supporting that we have a county-wide effort against bamboo so that we can comply with the ordinance. But I don't know as the park authority should be spending a dime on bamboo until the county has come up with a plan as to how they're going to unilaterally, as a county, respond to bamboo.
I mean, the ordinance is the county's way to respond to bamboo. And we're basically saying that anybody who has bamboo on their property, citizen, park authority, Fairfax County, government center, whatever,
Where's the
is a
money?
bamboo owner.
Where's the
And
money?
I don't know where the money is. The money is going to have to come from the citizens too, who have to take care of it on their property. So I think this ordinance, though, it's, you know, it's the first step, like John said, in trying to get a handle on invasive species. It's not the best ordinance. I'll just tell you that right now. It's not the best ordinance. And I think every board member will tell you that also, but it is a start, and it's something that, you know, we're going to try to make work. And if it doesn't work after the first year, we go back to the board and we have to beef it up. We'll beef it up. I mean, that's the approach I think we're taking with this ordinance.
Ken, do you still have your question?
My question was on outreach and it was answered.
All right. I don't see anything else. So with that, I will adjourn the Resource Management Committee. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Laura.
All right. Dr. Idu, are you there? And where are you? And you are and you where?
Oh, that's what you meant. I thought you were asking me. This is Abna Adu. I'm joining from my residence in Lee District.
Great. Thank you very much. And with that, we're a little bit late, but I'd like to call to order the April 27th, 2022 Park Authority Board meeting. Judy, we always start with a public comment period. Do we have any speakers tonight from the public?
Judy Peterson, Public Information Officer. We do not have any speakers tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Judy. So with that, we'll go on to our administrative items. Admin item number 1 countywide is the adoption of the minutes of the March 23rd, 2022 Park Authority Board meeting.
Is there a motion, Bill?
That's the motion.
Okay, thank you. This is Maggie Godbold. I'd like to second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Information item. Countywide information item number 1 is the FY22 and FY23 FCPA court improvements. Is there anything else additional on that? Or we covered it all in the last meeting? All right, thank you. No action items tonight. So we'll go on chairman's matters. It's been a while since we met, but thank you very, very much. Each and every one of you, all of the staff, all of our advocates, all of our board members, members of the Board of Supervisors. We spent a lot of time in the last month meeting one-on-one with all of the different supervisors. And I think they all came to a new understanding and a new realization of what our funding model really is, what it looks like. And I think that our advocates and their communication with the supervisors made a big, big difference in the final budget markup that was done yesterday. So again, thank you for all of your support, your advocacy. thanks to Kyle and Maggie also for speaking at the public hearing. It was very, very effective. And I think, we probably got more coverage of this budget hearing than any other budget hearing that I've been involved in from overall publicity news coverage standpoint, because we were getting hit from every angle. The Washington Post, WTOP, all the papers were asking a lot of questions. And I think that's because our advocates stepped up to really, really raise the bar on things that are necessary to support the park system going forward. So Jay will go into a little more detail about, what we hope the final budget looks like, and then some updates on, our CIP program. We are planning on having a big hoedown volunteer picnic event on May 20th at Frying Pan Park. Please involve and communicate to all of the folks that advocated that you know of. We'll of course do a publicity blitz on this, but we're expecting to see a lot of folks to come out. So we'll have an opportunity for a couple of hours to just say thank you. There won't be much speechifying. This is just an event to have them come out and say, we appreciate you for all of your support of parks, and to certainly support all of their advocacy efforts going forward. Big weekend coming up this weekend. Farmers markets are opening up again. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'll be at Reston on Saturday morning, opening up the biggest and the best farm market that we do, and the oldest as far as that's concerned. So really looking forward to that. Congratulations to Bobby and her marriage. Well done. Very, very happy with that. And the last thing is COVID's starting to get a little bit crazy again in terms of the numbers, not hospitalizations yet, but the numbers have increased about 62% recently. So I wanted to poll the board again in terms of meeting live, starting with our first meeting in May, or we'll continue the hybrid model, but is there any consensus or reluctance by the board to begin opening up meetings again? Jim?
Thank you. I'm not reluctant to meeting in person, but if we can keep open the option of also participating remotely, I think that would be helpful as well.
I think the hybrid model is probably here to stay, but we still have to have a quorum. If we're going to meet in person, we still have to have a quorum at the government center in order to do that. So I guess that's what I'm asking. Tim?
Bill, doesn't our ability to meet remotely or even the hybrid model, I mean, with the hybrid model, we have to have excuses, which in general, excuses, I think, are limited to 2 a year or something of that nature. Otherwise, to be able to continue to meet remotely, we have to still have a state of emergency declared? And will there be that? I agree with you. I've seen here and in DC and in Maryland cases on the rise. I feel like, Jim, I'm not adverse to meeting in person, but I also recognize that around us we are starting to see an increase in the number of cases.
Tim, the emergency ordinance is not expired yet. So we are still working under the emergency ordinance. So we don't need to have an excuse to continue.
No, then we don't. Right.
To continue with virtual meetings.
Right.
for the time being. And I think that most of the boards and commissions are continuing that effort, although there are a lot of them are starting to reconvene. But you know, I'm all ears in terms of how we want to do this. Ron?
Well, is it an all or nothing kind of a proposition, or could we, since we're having 2 meetings a month, have one on the virtual side and one on the in attendance side?
It's totally up the board. It's up to the board, but what we have to do is we have to have a public notice to let them know what's going on. And we don't want, and we don't want to spring that on them at the last minute. So we want to give them as much notice as possible with the method that we're going to meet. Ken?
I think the hybrid model has benefits, but in reality, we have to be flexible. If the COVID ticks up a bit, we may have to go back to where we are right now. And I agree, we don't want to notify the public at the 11th hour by any means, but we have to be flexible.
Mike?
Yeah, I certainly, I'm completely comfortable meeting in person and understand some of the potential limitations. My understanding is that put aside the state of emergency issue for a second. My understanding is that a board, if it were regular times, we had a quorum in the room, that any given board member can miss 25%, not miss, can participate in up to 25% of the meetings, no excuse, remotely. And that number, and that it's an unlimited if it's based on health issues. And that's as I recall, that's based on a calendar year. So, I mean, there's a whole, in terms of the hybrid model as envisioned when we met in the room, it feels like 6 years ago, but whenever we met there and passed that policy, I think that participation is there. My bet is that the emergency, that unless the state does something, I don't think the county is going to get rid of the emergency in the near future, simply because they still have to deal with a lot of the regulatory stuff that was waived for the restaurants and things that all disappear and automatically go backwards if the county gets rid of the state of emergency, and that they still have to figure out how to deal with those issues. But I think that I don't know how we justify outwardly that because of the pandemic, we think we can only meet in person every other meeting, and that the off one has to be virtual. That just, I don't know how that passes a smell test in terms of the pandemic being the reason.
Linwood?
Really tough question. I mean, I'm sitting here myself personally. Do I get the second booster? Do I wait for something that's more focused on Omicron? Do I still have antibodies that will help me not get real sick? All these are real questions to me that I don't know the answer to at this point. So there's lots of unknown about this. But you cited a figure about up 66%. And I don't know if that's like countywide, countrywide, whatever. But my thought is, can we apply some sort of standard to our decision? So we say we will meet in person if the spread is X, or some other standard where we basically just make the decision that we will meet if it's safe by this standard that we determine.
Thank you. Maggie?
Yeah, I understand, Linwood, where you're coming from. The problem is that we have to make this decision in advance. And so, you know, we can't apply a standard the day before. I personally am going to be traveling, and when I come back, I will have taken a test and I'll know whether or not I'm contagious. The issue is going to be, you know, how many of us are going to test before we walk into a room with the rest of us. And that's the only concern that I have. I'm being extra cautious right now because I'm starting to travel again and I want to make sure that things don't get canceled. So I'm okay with meeting in person. I'm also okay with doing the totally Zoom stuff. I mean, the good news is that we all got to meet each other. We've known each other for a long time. And so doing the Zoom is not as difficult as it is in other groups where you're meeting new people for the first time over the computer. So I'm comfortable either way.
I had intended that, if we determine some threshold, that the decision be made on our notification deadlines, which I don't believe that we have to notify, a month in advance what we're going to do, but it's a certain number of days or something like that. And I think it's less than a week. And that would certainly, give us some ability to judge the severity of the illness, the pandemic at that point. Anyway, it's just thoughts. I'm going to go with the flow. I will come. I will virtual, and
what I'm trying to do, Linwood, is I understand about the measurement and all that. I'm just trying to give us some predictability. I don't want to take it right up to the line where we have to make a decision one way or another. I want to think a month at a time or a meeting at a time so that we can just leave here today and people can plan their lives and travel in what we're going to do. So Faisal?
All right, so this is one issue that I can say that I am a little more qualified than the rest of you in this, because I was certainly the first one, if not the only one, who tasted this thing on this board. And I can tell you that when you look at the numbers that you're talking about, and it just raises the flag that is it worth the risk? Because there's several questions come up when you're doing that. Like Maggie said, that if the people are tested and if how many people are still comfortable wearing the mask for the longer period of time and all those things. So yeah, it's lovely meeting in person, but the gravity of the situation is that still it's out there and we just need to look at the risk and the rewards. So I'm more leaning towards meeting in person until not meeting in person and doing this on Zoom until we have a better control over these things. And I'm totally saying this on the basis of my personal experience. And I don't wish or that any of you suffer that what it takes to go through that.
Jim?
It appears that we are all over the place on this, which unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, is not much benefit to you.
Yes, it is.
I would just suggest that an approach might be that through July, we continue to do it remote. And of course, we're not meeting in August. So they give us a target date and time to consider whether things are okay to meet in September, as a group face to face. So that would, I guess, be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Carter?
Yes, I would hope that we could continue with the hybrid model. And I often base things on what my job is doing because it is so public facing. We are not, I went back to the office this morning. We're not allowed back in the office as workers still, except for twice a month, especially because COVID is on the uprise right now and the variant is so transmissible, easily transmitted. So I agree with those who say it would be good to err on the side of caution since this seems to be working for us. So that's what, that's my thought about it. So maybe if we look at it month to month, and in May, because we're on the uprise, maybe we would have continue Zoom and revisit it for June.
Mike?
Yeah, I was actually going to say something similar to what Jim was saying, and that is that what occurs to me is there's 6 meetings between now and August. I can't imagine that we would suddenly meet in person in July and not meet in August. So, and given the split that it sounds like, it certainly doesn't seem like there's a consensus to be able to put a quorum in the room next week. What would be 2 weeks from tonight? And I think that you've been really good at trying to do this a month at a time, which gives more planability. So, whether we say for the month of May or take Jim's suggestion, I was going to note that we're talking 6 meetings between now and the summer recess. I'd also say, Faisal, I don't wish it on anybody, but I've said this publicly, so I don't mind it. I mean, I too have caught it and went through it, despite being vaccinated at the time and everything else. But again, I'm comfortable, but I'm also traveling. I mean, like to Maggie's point, I mean, my business travel has gone up dramatically. All the conferences, everything else has all started again. So I may just be dealing with it in a different way.
All right, last one, Ron.
Yeah, I guess I concur. The only thing I think I'm really missing is I feel like we've diminished our public comment period times based on the virtual. And maybe we need to look at that front end piece on the public comment to see if there's a way we can actually push for more public comment so people will come forward and talk to us while we're in the Zoom sessions.
All right, thank you. I'm going to make an executive decision here. Unless the board tells me otherwise, we are going to plan on meeting virtually through the end of July.
That's great.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Thank you. And with that, I will turn it over to Jay.
Thank
Jay,
you.
please don't take as long as Bill did. Okay.
Linwood, I'm sorry, we had to do that. I did. I'm sensitive to you getting home on time.
Linwood, you're still
pressure.
going to get home before sunset.
It's still light out there, Linwood. Relax.
All right. Let's get it, Jay.
All right. So let me see. Hold on. See, you guys throwing me off. Okay, so we're gonna do things a little different, hopefully to go faster, since we're in this virtual format and a lot of the things that we do in parks are very visual. I'm gonna do my director's matters this way for a little bit, and we're gonna see how that goes. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, great. So first I want to talk about the Mary Read Memorial. It was an awesome job to everybody who contributed in very big and very small ways to relocating the Mary Read Memorial at Canterbury Woods Park. We were contacted by Supervisor Walkinshaw's office after constituents approached them to relocate the memorial as soon as possible. It was in a floodplain and it was underwater. It's a memorial to a student that perished in the tragic Virginia Tech shooting. It needed to be relocated before the 15th anniversary of that event. I cannot believe it's been 15 years. A couple of notable people: Doug Tipsword, one of our very talented landscape architects, quickly got to know the site and developed a concept plan, which was quickly submitted to LDS for approval. John Burke and Beth Inetta investigated the details. Kurt Lewis and Dan Sutherland and area manager Marco Suarez contacted a landscape company, and their crew was ready to do it. Nobody thought that we were going to be able to get it done before the 15th anniversary celebration. Sam Hudson kept the team going, coordinating with the director's office, park ops. Everybody defied the odds by successfully relocating this memorial with a few days to spare before the 15th anniversary. So kudos to everybody that was involved there. We are working on a COVID-19 memorial. Again, we were approached by Chairman McKay to create a memorial to commemorate significant loss of life due to COVID-19 and enduring impacts to all in the community. We have about a 12 to 15 month project timeline. We are the lead for engagement, planning and design. Construction phase might need a little bit of additional support. We have yet to identify the location, but it will be sited on either county or park property. Cost estimates are still getting worked out. We're anticipating county funding, the planning board, Park Authority Board for public meetings and guidance throughout the process. And we're going to have to report back to the Board of Supervisors. And then the construction phase might involve tap facilities. We had an Anglers with Autism event on Saturday, April the 2nd to celebrate World Autism Day at Lake Fairfax Park. It was a free event for families of youth with autism from age 6 to 21. We hosted 18 kids and 16 adults and 8 families. 4 rec center swim teams participated in the Special Olympics. Virginia Swim Meet qualifiers on March the 26th. This was the first meet in over 2 years. As a result of the March event at Claude Moore Rec Center, 43 of the 63 swimmers for the Virginia Special Olympics are FCPA swimmers. They will represent Area 26 in Richmond on June the 10th through the 12th. From the Resource Management Division, the Archaeology and Collections branch launched a multi-year initiative to survey and record all historical cemeteries within the county. The goal is to create and distribute a public-facing cemetery map that includes updated survey information. Archaeologists will continue to work with a wide range of stakeholders, including cemetery owners, descendants of those buried in historical cemeteries, historical societies, HOAs, faith communities, and other interested groups. Also from the Resource Management Division, we celebrated the first annual One Dark Hour event, so Dark Skies, for Dark Skies Week on Friday, April 22nd, to kick off the celebration of International Dark Sky Awareness Week. This is the launch of a new countywide topic page about dark skies and light pollution. We collaborated with the Girl Scout Council of the nation's capital to establish a dark skies patch and associated program offered at several parks. Okay. I want to, let me go back up because this is I also attended Colmore Day on Saturday, which was a phenomenal event. I'm gonna have Allison send you guys a really awesome video the Channel 16 did on Colmore Day. I'd hate to keep us longer, so I'm not gonna show the 2-minute video, but I'll get the 2 minutes back. I also attended the Annandale Greenway event. And tomorrow, staff are very excited that we are participating in Take Your Kid to Work Day. And we are doing it at Frying Pan Park. And so if anybody's, not busy and want to mosey on over to Frying Pan Park and see all the very cute children of our staff, feel free to come on over. Okay, so as far as the budget, I want to echo what Bill said, and I want to thank specifically Michael Peters, or Moneyball as I have dubbed him, and the rest of his budget team, as well as Sarah and Amy for their hard work during this budget season. I would also like to thank all of you for your steadfast support of our budget. It's been a full-out sprint for the past couple of months with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but we got it done. So here's the result. On the left is our original request, and on the right is what was in the original county executive proposed budget. And then on the far right, sorry, in the middle is the county executive's proposed budget. And on the far right is the addition proposed by the Board of Supervisors markup. The $751,000, as Tim pointed out, was a consideration item put forth by Supervisor Faust to fully fund the natural resources sustainability ask. That made it into the markup. For a total of $4,155,437, which is the largest year-over-year increase that we've had for the last 20 years. So we're very excited about that. The Patriot Park North number that you see, it looks like it's partial year because we're not opening the facility at the beginning of the fiscal year. It seems like that's not fully funded, but this is, some of the items were one-time requests for Patriot Park North. And so those are going to be funded through third quarter funding. And so this is a list of third quarter funding that we're going to be getting this year. An additional $669,000 for Patriot Park North one-time expenditures, $100,000 for AV for the summer concert series, $700,000 for our asset management system implementation. So in third quarter, we'll get $1.5 million. We are still in talks with management and budget about our CIP. And so we are trying to make that work. I think that they heard us about the 6-year 100 million. It was meant to be flexible. And so we're gonna be working on, we've got really three separate issues, three separate things that we need to work out. Let me stop sharing. Maybe. Hold on. Why can I never get out of Zoom? Allison, how do I stop sharing? There we go. Oh, you just stopped it for me. Thank you. Thank you for the help. One of the things that we're trying to, the three issues with the CIP that I see is the first thing that we're working with Christina Jackson on is how do we, with the bond limits, the bond sale limits that we have to abide by for the entire county, how do we get through the rest of this this year, this CIP year, I think across the board, because of a lot of the issues that we saw as well with increased costs, delayed projects across the county. We're really hitting up against our sale limits for the entire county. And so we're working through how to get through the rest of this CIP, and then moving to the 6-year bond or getting to 2026 is how do we bridge that gap so that we make sure that we're not delaying projects like Audrey Moore, which was specifically called out during markup as not wanting to delay that project that was scheduled to start work in 2024 and start construction hopefully in 2025. So we're hoping, we're working with them to not delay that project and other projects. And then the last thing is how to now, when we're going to a 6-year bond starting in 2026, how do we right size that so that we're not, so we get enough to be able to get these large rec centers going. So we are in conversations with that about that. We're also, when it comes to the equity request, the $500,000, we're going to be putting that, a large chunk of that into getting consultant on board to really analyze the situation and tell us what we need to do to move into a more equitable space with our revenue fund. So I am in conversations right now to try to get somebody on board. We have an equity team that we're working with that's cross cutting us, the county, somebody from the Board of Supervisors office. And that's where we are with that. Dr. Carter, did you have your hand up for me? Okay, and that's my report, unless anybody has any questions for me.
I just have a quick one for you, Jay. Have we accepted this 6-year bond? I still am kind of confused by the logic of that. As I've expressed before, it's backwards to me. Is it still in consideration for the current 4-year or even a 2-year cycle?
I think moving to this, I think that where the wind is blowing is moving towards the 6-year with the caveat that it's right sized for what it is that we need. The whole point there, the point across the street, and I'm gonna, I think speak for Christina, is going to referendum so quickly, but still having bond sales from the previous year. They're trying to spread that time frame out a little bit, and I think that that's sort of where it's likely going to be headed.
A lot changes in 6 years. Certainly priorities often do. It's a lot to commit to, long time for commitments, and minimizes our ability to be flexible.
We're working it. Thank you. All right, Cynthia?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, Mike?
I'll pass tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
And just briefly, Jay and I did have the opportunity to talk with Jeff McKay. And, you know, Jay, if it's okay with you, I'd like to talk with you about what your experience has been since that meeting with regard to DMB. So we'll take that offline. But other than that, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Ken?
Just one real quick note on the positive side. This Saturday is the 10th anniversary of the Healthy Strides 10K, 5K run, which is, I think, the only run sponsored by the Park Authority. And much of the a portion of the proceeds comes to the Park Authority. So the runners can use all the cheering they can get.
Thank you.
The weather's supposed to be good.
Great. Kyle?
Just quickly want to thank the advocates that were in front of the supervisors, both during the public hearings. We had a nice contingent that first day that spoke after Bill, Maggie, and myself. And they just kept the pressure on throughout the budget process, and I think helped get at least that natural resource item across the finish line. So that's it.
Thank you. Faisal?
I'll pass, sir.
Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly, I know Drainsville has been imposing greatly on the time of staff and especially senior staff. And I just want to thank all concerned and also Chairman Bowie for their involvement, patience, and understanding. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ron?
I definitely want to thank Director Cole for the visit she did to Mason District on Saturday. Spending pretty much your whole day in Mason was good for us. I also want to thank the staff from FCPA that worked both of those events, from Hidden Oaks and Wang and Bang, and the folks who put on all the service work there. I also want to let people know that if you are actually at Burke Lake this coming Saturday, you will see number 148 walking around the lake at the Healthy Strides event. I was cajoled into it by my wife this year, and I'm probably going to make it annual, but I'll be there.
Great. Good deal.
I'll see you.
Linwood?
I feel like I've spoken a lot tonight, and in respect for my peers on the board and staff, I'll pass.
Maggie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the staff for all their work of advocating for the park in front of the Board of Supervisors, both publicly and privately. And I understand this is just the first battle. This is going to continue. This is not over. We have much more to do. But I was very impressed with the community support. Even my husband wrote a letter. Amazing, huh? So it was good. It was all appreciated, and we just have to get ready to do it again. Thank you. And I'll miss next time. I'll see you all in June.
Dr. Adu?
Thank you. I'll pass.
Okay. I will be out Saturday at Stratton Woods, the Spring Fling, the first outdoor 3-wall, 1-wall racquetball tournament and handball tournament will be going on starting Friday night. So I won't be wearing 148. It'll be more like 250, but we'll see how that goes. And I have a meeting scheduled at the end of May with the chairman and a citizen. For you old timers, you can appreciate this. He wants to talk about funding and building a memorial garden somewhere. I can tell you that we will try to find we won't have any obstacles this time, unlike the Korean garden that we turned down the last time, for sure. So with that, we will go into closed session.
This is Mike Thompson. I move the Park Authority Board recess and convene in closed session for the discussion and consideration of matters enumerated in Virginia Code 2.2-3711 and listed in the agenda for the meeting as follows. Consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A7, as well as discussion or consideration of the acquisition of publicly held real property for a public purpose, or of the disposition of publicly held real property, where the discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3. This includes the consideration of the addition of property located in the Mason and Sully districts to the work plan.
This is Tim Hackman. I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. We are now going to go into closed session for approximately 20 minutes.
Let me know when we're. This is Mike Thompson. I move the Park Authority Board return to open session.
This is Maggie Godbold. I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. We are now out of closed session.
This is Mike Thompson. I move the Park Authority Board certify to the best of each member's knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under Virginia Code 2.2-3711, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the board.
This is Maggie Godbold. I second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That motion carries. In Mason District, C1 approved the lease agreement for the Park Authority property in Mason District.
This is Ron Kendall. I move to approve the lease agreement as discussed in closed session.
This is Tim Hackman. I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Mason District C2, DTA auction for a property in the Mason District.
This is Ron Kendall. I move to approve this motion.
Tim Hackman, second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. In the Sully District, C3, property in Sully District added to the work plan.
Yeah, this is Maggie Godbold. I move that we add the property in the Sully District to the work plan as we discussed in the closed session, property C3.
Tim Hackman, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries.
That was C4 though.
No, that was
No,
C3.
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 There were two properties. This was C3.
C4, Sully, C4, property in Sully District to add to the work plan.
This is Maggie Godbold. I move that we add the C4 property in the Sully District to the work plan as we discussed in the closed session.
Tim Hackman, second.
Is there discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And Linwood, it might be a little bit dark, but we're going to get you home on time this evening. Maggie,
I think I'm going to be in the driveway before it gets dark.
Okay, good. Maggie, have a great time in
Have a super trip.
Tahiti and Bora Bora and all those
How can you
fantastic
not?
places.
Exactly.
Ken, good luck on Saturday. Thanks everybody for all that you do. And we'll catch up with you soon. And with that, we are adjourned.
Night all.
Bye.